My name is Stuart. I'll be introducing the days here in a few minutes, but our purpose, as it says in the second slide, is why are we investing in this effort? There's good news tonight. The good news is that you're here with us learning and hopefully taking something away from this evening's information session. There is no bad news because there's no storms active in the Atlantic at this point, just a couple of disturbances. But those could develop. One of them is at 40, two of them are at 40% of possible development. We all know what happened down in the south, on the Atlantic coast, with the development of Florence. How many people, by a show of hands, think that something like Florence could happen here in the New York, Westchester area? Glad to see most, if not all, everyone is agreed. We all know. Yeah, it's okay. We all know that Sandy came in several years ago, but what you probably don't remember is that Sandy did not make landfall in New York. It made landfall on the Delaware-New Jersey border, quite a distance away. The last time New York had a direct hit by a major hurricane, it was a Category 3, 1938. It was the Long Island Express, and that was a time when Long Island didn't have much out there except maybe some cows grazing. Imagine if we had an event like that now, a 3 or 4 or 5. All of the experts say there's no question that it's going to happen. No question. We're going to get hit. Just a matter of time. It's going to happen. And year after year, I've spoken to you about this. And hopefully, the way we formatted this evening's event, you'll get a little bit more impetus to take action, because that's what we need. We've been listening, and you're going to be given an opportunity, because this is not a passive experience where we have a panel that's going to tell you what to do. This evening, we're going to do a modified tabletop exercise. Tabletop exercise is a tool that emergency planners use to practice and plan for emergencies of all different types. Tonight, we're going to do the hurricane. It is an active type of event. Now I'll direct you to the agenda slide, which is on the next, should be on the next page. I'd like to introduce the panel, and starting with the Red Cross. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what Red Cross does in general, because we're going to get into the specifics a little bit further along.
I talk loud enough, so that's what my wife always says, so I don't need a microphone.
Right.
My name is Lambros. I'm a volunteer with the American Red Cross of Metro New York North. Our chapter is in Greenwich, Connecticut, and we have an office in Hawthorne, New York. Basically, my primary role is a disaster action team leader or captain for any type of disaster, whether it be fire, flood, or natural disaster. I also do mass care as far as sheltering for any type of events. I also do health services if a client that is involved in a disaster needs medicine replaced. And I have my hands in other agencies besides the Red Cross. So I think, is that good enough, Stuart, or should I give them? That sounds perfect? All right.
And now our representative from the county, Office of Emergency Management Office, and if you would.
Okay. I've been told I speak loudly, but I'm covering my bases. My name is Matt Cavilier. I work for Westchester County's Department of Emergency Services in the Office of Emergency Management. Primarily during an event like we're talking about here, our Emergency Operations Center would be stood up, and that's a clearinghouse for information, for situational awareness, for coordination of efforts and resources. That goes through the local process initially. It starts at the local municipality level. If the needs that are present there exceed the capability of that municipality, they would reach out to the county through the Emergency Operations Center to request a resource or whatever it might be. We work through our process there. and we can continue from there, and I'll get a little further into it later. But essentially, we're there for information sharing, coordination, situational awareness, and that resource process. Is that about adequate for your purposes now, Steve?
A lot better than me.
And now our representative from Con Edison.
So, yeah, I speak loud too, but
Oh.
I think the microphone helps, I guess. So my name is Boliver. I work for Con Ed. I work specifically for the Emergency Preparedness Department. We used to be called Emergency Management, but I guess it caused a little confusion. Our role primarily is to prepare the company for emergencies, right? So we handle exercises. We do a lot of these things internally, externally with other agencies. So we participate with exercises with the county and the city. We have plans, regulatory, we do a lot of things to prepare the company, and in the event of an emergency, we also provide support for our operating groups to respond to an emergency. So our role primarily is that of support and to prepare the company for an emergency.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. I just want to remind everyone that people sitting in this room are shakers and movers in the real estate industry. We have people from different areas of real estate. We've got managing agents, we've got board members, we've got vendors, we have professionals. The goal here is to take the information and have this sift down to your employees and residents of buildings, the employees of various companies that might be represented here. If the workers and the residents don't understand what's possible and what's not possible in terms of their survival during a disaster or an emergency or a catastrophic event, and there's a difference between an emergency, a disaster, and a catastrophe, then the job of the emergency services in delivering their services is going to be would be made exponentially worse, because we have a very fine emergency services department in the county. We have fire departments, we have EMS. They only have a certain capacity. It's not going to be there for a large disaster or a catastrophe. It's up to the individual in their home, in their community, in their block, in their building, in their co-op or condo, or in their business to make up the slack. The problem is that we're not used to this type of a disaster situation in New York. Sandy was nothing compared to what's going to happen here. And I hate to be the gloom and doom person, but the good news is, as I say, take this information away that you'll learn, start working in your individual companies and buildings, and you'll sleep better at night, I promise you. Because I'm sure all the people on the panel and myself sleep pretty good because we are prepared. I dare say that we are prepared because that's what we do. So what we're inviting you to is to have a good night's sleep and also help your community. Questions up on the board? Is anybody doing emergency planning? Who's responsible in the organization? Is there anybody who's doing any kind of planning? And the question is, if you don't have a plan by now, after the years that I've been up here asking you, why not? What's in the way? Do we have to have a Pearl Harbor type of experience which tends to be a cultural thing in the United States? We have to get knocked down and then we're ready to coming back. What we're trying to do is stopping the knocking down and make us more resilient. So there's no excuse for not at least beginning the process of planning for this group. We did the introductions. Okay. We're in the tabletop mode now. We're going to be asking you in a little while to actually work within your table groups on certain problems we're going to give you. That's why we just didn't want people to come up and lecture you about what you need to do. The purpose of the panel is to tell you about what their agencies do for the county and for themselves. We're going to have an opportunity to work amongst yourselves for a few minutes and decide what each individual group will do for yourselves. It's different. Coordination with the emergency response agencies in the county is critical. Nothing is done in a vacuum. Within your own companies and organizations, I'm sure you understand that there's got to be good communication. Time for dealing with emergencies and planning is not during the emergency. You need to, quote unquote, break bread with people. You need to sit down, meet with them, talk about different problems, do the what ifs. And through that, a mechanism gets started for a formal plan. And let me say that in terms of resources on the internet, there's no end to the resources for planning for emergencies and for disasters. It's all there for you. So let no one say when it happens that we didn't know, or we didn't have the ability, or there wasn't any information out there. You have some handouts, just to give you an idea of what's available. Those handouts can be gotten from FEMA directly in quantity if you want to distribute them to your constituencies. You can do that regularly. Red Cross has the ability to do that in some instances. So the state of New York has a lot of material also available to be given out. So, you see this, you can see what time frame we're talking about. In the Atlantic Basin, look at where they all originate. Right off the Azores, off of Africa. And if you look closely, you'll see the storms that come up into the New York area. We had an unusual season this year. The Florida's experience, usually these storms come in down, cross into Florida, and come up the coast, and then go out to sea. Florida's came straight across and hit directly in. Unusual, not completely without precedent, but unusual. The other couple of storms that never made it our way, if you were following them, they came up, and one of them headed up to England, went all the way across the Atlantic, also very unusual. Another one, I think it was Helene, came off the coast, did a corkscrew, and went back to Africa, also unusual. Something's going on. I don't have to talk to you about global warming and all of these other environmental aspects. But these storms they're not behaving the way they normally do. And Florida's having slowed down. It was a category, I think, 4, and then slowed down, and then became a category 2, and it made landfall. And it just parked itself on the coast, and it was like a storm generating machine. Just dumped 2 feet, I think, was the maximum. And they're still having runoff difficulties. Again, you have to put yourself in their shoes. You have to do the what ifs. What would Westchester County look like if it was inundated with 2 feet of rain? It's not an impossible scenario by any stretch of the imagination. And I say it's going to happen, and so do a lot of the experts. So you have a choice. Get ready or don't get ready. So, the emergency planning process. Prepare and protect, respond, recover, and mitigate. Those are the stages. Now, just going back for a moment to speak about an emergency, a disaster, and a catastrophe. An emergency is the kind of thing that you do every day. The police come, you call them, the fire department puts out a trash can fire, you have an EMS call. These are emergencies. They're run-of-the-mill. It's within the system's ability to help and deal with it. A disaster requires more help, usually from outside the community, from the state, from the federal government in some instances. A catastrophic event is something that's beyond the community's ability. We don't have many catastrophes because the way the government is organized, we have plans, the federal government, we have compacts between the states, regional assistance, and it works fairly well. But we're all human. The planners are human, the responders are human, and what do we know about human beings? They're flawed. We're all flawed, even the best of us. So it's a given that the plans are going to be flawed in some way. So what do? We trust FEMA, we trust the state government response, the state office of emergency management, we trust the county. Everybody's doing the best they can. Well, what does it come down to? It comes down to the individual, the people sitting here, your families, your friends, your community, the people in your building, your development, the people you work with. That's where it all falls down to, because all disasters are local. They all start locally, and they get their assistance in resolving them as the need arises. The county has a problem, they call the state. The state has a problem, the compact, the contiguous states in the area will help. And then it goes up to the federal government. And in some cases, I think you might remember that during Katrina, we had some offers from foreign countries to help us with disaster response. I think Israel wanted to send some people in, and a couple of other European countries. That's the first for that. So, you know, it could be that there are times when we do need that kind of help, because, you know, a catastrophic event is beyond the ability of the community to respond. So these are the different categories we're going to deal with tonight. Here's the guidance. You have to have a plan. You have to have a team. You need to know what is going to befall you. What are the hazards? In this case, we're talking about hurricanes. You have to know about evacuations, supplies, what to get. And again, all of this is on the internet. You have to know about a little bit about the weather. Watch the Weather Channel. Watch any of your outlets for weather. They'll give you pretty good advice. They're very good at doing that. Volunteer emergency responders. Without volunteer responders and having those volunteers integrated into your communities, into your buildings, there are things called community emergency response teams. The Red Cross volunteer system. The county has volunteers. The regular responders in a catastrophic event cannot handle the load. It's not possible. Even when they bring people in from other states, as the utilities do, to deal with emergencies, that's a special response. It requires technical expertise. But on a day-to-day basis during an emergency, you're going to have volunteers trained, ready to go in your communities that will know what to do until the system begins to come back online, the regular response system. And again, coordinating all of this with the county. In this case, the county coordinates with the state. Now, I'm going to give you a little video to watch, and then we're going to start with the tabletop activity at each individual table. So watch this, and hopefully it'll work. Go. This is information, and this is in your packet if you want to read along with it. They're in the back of your presentation. There we go.
Good morning. Welcome back to BNN. The National Hurricane Center is warning this morning that Hurricane Hannah has strengthened into a dangerous Category 4 storm and is tracking towards our greater metropolitan area. Models indicate possible landfall over the region as early as Thursday morning. But forecasters are not sure if the storm will strengthen or weaken over these next few days. The governor is not taking chances. She has ordered the evacuation of all citizens and tourists within 10 miles of the coast. That means over 1 million people are evacuated from the metro area and coastal regions. Local highways are already jammed with traffic, and some gas stations have already run out of gas. The Hurricane Center is warning that if Hannah strengthens to a Category 5, and that's the highest level of category, that many homes and buildings will either be damaged or completely destroyed. Mobile homes are especially vulnerable, and they can be completely destroyed. Any building that is unsound could collapse. With the storm surge and rains, there can be major damage to lower floors of all buildings, located up to 15 feet above sea level and within 500 yards of the shoreline. Again, the governor has ordered a mandatory evacuation for everyone within 10 miles of the coast.
Bless you.
Okay, so at this point, I'd like to have the panel talk about their individual agency responses. what their agencies are going to do to prepare at this point. And after that, we're going to give you an opportunity to work in your table groups to discuss what you might do. And I'm sure you'll have different types of people from different agencies and different organizations at each table, so it'll make for an interesting experience. So starting with our emergency service person from the county, what is the county doing at this point in the planning process?
Okay, so generally you have I'm going to put the planning and preparedness pieces together because they do kind of go hand in hand. Planning, like you had up there a second ago, it is important to have a plan. What's even more important than that is practicing and training your staff on that plan, because I've said in other trainings, if you have it and it lives in a binder on a shelf, that might look very nice on your shelf. It doesn't do you much good operationally, so it's good to have that. It's good to practice it, reinforce it, and also ensure that it's up to date, because maybe your needs have changed over time. Maybe your facility has changed. The needs of your constituents might have changed. So that is... Sorry.
You're good.
That's part of the planning piece. As far as preparedness, I know you had mentioned this, Stu, having the personal preparedness aspect, having a family preparedness plan, having a go bag, we call it. If you go to keepingsafe.westchestergov.com, we have some resources there, as well as some links to some FEMA resources to help you in that process and kind of think about what you might include in a kit like that, where you could, as the name implies, pick it up and go with it. As far as the county's response during this phase, we would be sharing information, coordinating with our stakeholders in the local municipal jurisdictions, disseminating information, and ensuring that everybody's communicating, reporting any needs they might have, and kind of doing the preparedness piece as time is moving on, and then the timeline is moving on towards whatever the storm or the hazard might be. We're also ensuring the county departments are preparing, because it is a cooperative effort amongst county departments and agencies. Certainly, we're looking at public messaging, getting that ready to go, kind of looking at what that's going to look like as the event kind of opens up into full swing. We're looking at mass care planning, transportation planning, coordinating with our partners at the Red Cross, looking at healthcare facilities, what their needs might be, what their censuses are, where they are in their planning processes in case there were a need to take action later on. And we'll get to recovery later, but we are also looking at initiating cost tracking so that can be recorded and reported on later on. Thanks.
Thank you. Now, Red Cross, could you comment on what Red Cross would be doing at this point?
Thank you. As like Matt has said from the Department of Emergency Services, we would work hand in hand with them. The American Red Cross has a department that we have government liaisons that are Red Cross volunteers that work hand in hand with other agencies like Con Edison, like Department of Emergency Services. And at that particular time, we would work with them and figure out where would be the best location to open up either emergency evacuation shelters or long-term shelters, depending on the situation at hand. So from this first scenario, this would be an emergency shelter to get out of harm's way and to be off the coastline. We would activate all of our volunteers that do mass care for sheltering operations. Our health services would be activated. Our disaster mental health volunteers. We have volunteers that are trained psychiatrists that can help any client that has been devastated by a disaster. Also, we have spiritual care, and we would activate them to be coincide within all the shelters. Once our shelters are opened, we have agreements with different municipalities, villages, towns, where we can open shelters. They have to be ADA compliant, they have to have showers, they have to have means of egress and people with disabilities. The American Red Cross provides all the cots, beds, blankets, pillows that anyone is needed. Okay? When it comes to pets, that's always been a big thing. We do accept pets as long as they have, and this is in case of the hurricane, if you have their vaccination paperwork. If you have their vaccination paperwork, then we can take them in. You have to bring their own cage and carrier and food if you can. If not, we could provide that. But the American Red Cross will be working hand in hand with all the other government agencies to make sure this is a very, fluid, moving operation. Okay? Anything else?
Thank you. Now, Con Ed could share a little bit about where you would be at this point.
So at this point of the situation, right, where the hurricane hasn't hit yet, we're planning, preparing for it. We have a coastal storm plan, so we would activate our coastal storm plan. We would start talking to outside agencies like the Westchester County OEM, New York City OEM, which would have calls. We have calls every few hours to track the storm, so we would be tracking the storm very closely and to see where it would hit and what would be the potential damage to our system, right? So for the utility side, there's different things that could affect us. So in the city, a lot of flooding could cause issues in the steam system and the gas system. Up here, winds and down trees can cause a lot of damage to the overhead power line. So we would be trying to track how badly the damage could be. And at this point, we would try to secure help from other utilities. Like Stu mentioned, we have an agreement with other states that could provide mutual assistance. So we would start to secure additional resources. And to Stu's point, it's important to remember that our employees live here, so they would be affected by this. So, like Matt mentioned, we have to have our own personal preparedness plan and be prepared to not be home for a few days, a week. During Sandy, I wasn't home for a week, right? So we need to be prepared to be out of our homes for a long period of time to have preparations for ourselves. The people who do not work in an operations group, people who don't work for electric, gas, or steam, we have lawyers, we have doctors, things like that don't work for those types of operations. They have what we call a system emergency assignment. So in a situation like this would be an all hands on deck. So every employee in the company would be tasked to do something to help and make sure that we can restore power or restore gas or whatever the utility effect is as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. So everybody has an assignment and everybody's expected to help and report to an emergency.
Very good, thank you. I just want to expand on one thing that was just said. During Katrina, you may remember 300 police officers left their job in New Orleans because their families were in danger and they just walked away. It's 300 law enforcement officers. Since then, a lot of municipalities have begun to pay attention to the families of the people who do the response. Similarly, people in buildings, co-ops, condos, businesses, organizations need to pay attention to making sure that the staff, family members are taken care of. It's another level, because if the staff person that you have is worried about their family, and they don't know that their family is safe, and the family is not prepared, they're not coming to work. So all the people that you think are going to show up and help you are not. I promise you. It's not about money, it's about safety. So you better address the issue at whatever level you need to. You need to find out who your employees are, what their family compositions are, what is their plan for an emergency response. How will they be able to respond to you? What are you going to do to put them up in a safe place? I'm sure you're doing this for winter storms now, right? In many buildings, especially in co-ops, condos, homeowners associations, big storm, they're not going home. They have to stay overnight. You have provisions for that, I'm sure, or you should. So imagine a larger scale where people won't be able to get back to their families for a week or more. And in terms of evacuations and for planning, don't think necessarily that you're going to be able to evacuate. During that, I forget the storm that hit Florida, that went right up the coast last year, right up the middle of the state, that people evacuated and they got out and they were traveling and the storm was moving faster than they were moving on the highway and they ran out of gas, and there's no provision for the state to bring tankers in along the highways to fuel the gas stations with the people running out of gas. And there's no provision here in New York for mandating that gas stations have emergency power. so that they can pump the gas that's right there. So people have to go to Connecticut to get gas, and they run out of gas to get to the, I don't have, you get the idea, right? People got stuck on that storm on the highways during the hurricane, as opposed to being in a safe place. In many cases, they probably better off staying where they were, but evacuations are what they are. Don't necessarily think that the thruway is going to get you further out to where you need to go. And you also have to remember you have to have a place to go. Red Cross shelters will be set up, I'm sure, up along the routes to accommodate people in the towns outside of harm's way. But again, don't think that the system's going to work 100% to your favor. You need to really understand the system, which means you have to do your homework and do those type of activities that will support you in that. Now, I cast this slide inadvertently earlier. We're going to go into the phase of working at tables for a few minutes. No fault, no stress. You're going to talk about things that you know. If you don't know, you all have Google. Google it. See if that's going to give any help. We're not going to have a lot of time. Normally this is a 3 or 4 hour exercise. But we've tooled it down a bit. Allow for artificialities, improvise. One person needs to be a discussion leader and can be the scribe also. You're going to talk about certain things in your groups, and then you're going to report out to the room about what you find. What is it that you're going to do? We're going to ask you the questions. And again, it's very important, this is just a small part of the information that's needed in order to make an effective planning process. So that's what we want to put that caveat in. Let me just go now. Okay, here we are. Remember, the storm is about, let's say it's off of Cape Hatteras, just south of Cape Hatteras in the Carolinas, coming northwest. 2 days out. These are the questions you need to think about. Who's on the team? How are you going to use communications? The families. So what I'd like you to do now is talk amongst yourselves. As a group, appoint somebody or someone, there's always someone that volunteers to be the spokesperson, I'm hoping, at each table. And then in about 5 to 10 minutes, or a little less, we'll see about having a representative talk about what it is the conclusions are that table, each table will be reporting out.
I would say also that if there's a table that's lightly populated, for lack of a better word, you can combine. This way we won't have that many tables here. We can combine a couple of different groups of people. I wanted to sit at the table with the nuclear physicist and scientific experts, so I'm going to grab a chair and I'm going to sit at this table. But anyway, if you want to consolidate it, I can help to facilitate the few number of tables and the more synergy amongst people.
Thank you. And remember, this is just a guide. That's all you're going to do is you're going to do the bias and you're going to sort
A couple of times that you ran out of power at the gas station. Had gas, can't pump.
If you have any questions, you need resources. People at the dais, you can send their brothers to ask them questions. That's something that
Generators and all that. A lot of people.
all of you to help.
Positions being paid for. Rightfully so. You run out of power, what's every 45 years? I said, back in the 1920s.
The hardest part of the process is to find a leader.
You got to do it.
1-0 Boston.
Good. 100. The amount generated, and probably better.
Right, no, you're absolutely right. It doesn't rely on anything. You don't rely on...
I voiced that expression, and all of the petroleum people said, yeah, that's great. Do that. All they did is accept it. Price on the damn thing, forget about it. Then you got to worry about the generators, and then you got to get a gas for the generators.
Yeah, the
And then
wiring.
if it's worth right, you know.
Sometimes the low-tech solutions.
We should learn from the past.
Absolutely.
History.
We shouldn't forget the past.
History.
Indeed.
People don't read history. They have no idea what the hell's going on.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, so we actually are in the process of testing our plans for cybersecurity because we have gotten so reliant on technology
Oh, yeah.
that
We're good.
we say, well, what happened to the technology? And we used to work without it, so
I had to
we
go
gotta
on
remember.
a trip. It's going back now 10 years ago. So I walked in the bank and I said, look, and the teller says to me, oh, the computers are down. She said, I have to come back. I said, no, I'm taking a train in 10 minutes.
You give me $100.
I said, give me $100. I called the manager. He was the only one in the bank that knew how to do a manual transaction.
Yeah.
What the kind of nonsense is that?
Right, no, you're absolutely right.
I mean, these people have no idea. God forbid, we ever had a cyber attack where nothing worked. What do you do?
I know. That's what I'm saying. We're in the process of testing that for ourselves
my
right now.
computer. Let me hook up the.
Yeah.
That's why I hope part of the presentation is to talk about manual stuff because computers and TV and the radio might not
They
work.
won't be working. Cell phones might not be working.
Even that, magnetic impulses could kill, destroy all the important resistors.
Yeah, they're talking about how much they're going to raise the rent after the disaster. Yeah.
That's fine. That's a good point. What's the budget going to cost?
They don't have any idea.
You know, you're absolutely right. And it's an issue. It's certainly an issue.
It's all part of it. Be prepared.
Yes, you absolutely do. It's part of being prepared. You got to have a plan and test.
Now, they never do it. In the Carolinas, I would always say, what if you tell people always have a pontoon ready? That's a cheap thing to have.
Yeah.
That's all you have to have, a pontoon ready. You know, you can go around your house.
You have to.
Instead of worrying about going up on your roof.
I know. Yeah. Well, or evacuate, right? You have to evacuate. You should evacuate. Oh, this is good. We're gonna get them to, get them to think about what to do.
Is this thing on? No.
That's a night.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either.
I don't know, I'm not saying, it's a microphone, so yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, they're hearing us.
They're tracking us?
Yeah. We're raising the rent 10% because of this. That's what we're going to do.
Matt, I think you have a drinking problem.
Thank God. Oh yeah, that's going to really look good on the picture. I wasn't going to see that. Oh my God, how many vodkas are there? Hey! Goddamn county.
Oh, goodness.
I'm also used to standing up when I present.
Yeah, me too. Nice.
Yeah, I know.
I usually also never use
Another
mine.
couple of minutes.
I hate microphones.
Yeah.
I talk loud enough.
Yeah, I usually don't use mine. If we have a learning center, right? So we have, our auditorium is about this big, and every 3 or 4 months we have a gas lessons learned. So we go over all the gas incidents that we've had in the company to teach people from all over the company, but mostly newer gas employees, what they're getting themselves into. And I worked in gas for 8 years, and I responded to plenty of small and big events. So I teach the section on preparedness. I teach the section on what are our plans, what are our procedures, what to do, ICS, all of those things. And I just stand in the front of the room, no microphone, like I can't, and I walk around and go away.
I don't like standing behind a podium.
Yeah,
I like
he did.
to work the floor.
I walk around like I got my remote.
Okay, informally, the items.
You can throw pictures of my big head. See if there's.
Okay, for the rest of this isn't going to be done by the end.
All hurry up because
That would be great. This is a good somebody.
8:30.
I'm gonna say no.
As soon as they leave here, they're gonna forget everything they said.
Low stress?
Stress.
No.
We do these all the
Just
time.
me.
No.
Hey, they're the ones that are gonna have all the tenants come banging on their door asking the questions.
That's a good point.
That's-
Sometimes bring up.
That's the first thing they're gonna
Accountability.
say.
They're gonna say, how come?
Is this building safe? Is this building, can it hold up to the, is it, what did I pay this rent
That's why I
for?
usually talk to mayors of towns when they meet with them and say, what are you doing to educate your residents?
Is your insurance gonna cover the damage? Is your, not me, ain't gonna be bothering me.
Good, I'm calling you next time. You're gonna conduct it.
Okay.
We're gonna have you do it.
Yeah, but I'm straightforward. I'll tell it the way it is. I'll scare them. They'll be running out the door.
That's one of the reasons I do this and I don't do it with the didn't do it with the Red Cross because the Red Cross gotta watch what you say.
No, I still,
You're different.
yeah, I don't care.
I had to keep my mouth
Yeah, well,
shut
you
because
were
I was
staff.
the chairman, so I had to.
Yeah, I don't,
Now I can say what I want.
yeah,
because
I
like
tell it the way it is. Thank God that mic's on. That's it, I'm done.
Okay, I think, given the activity that I've seen, that we're going to be ready to begin to work one out. What do you think?
I think they didn't want to give it up.
No,
Got a monster on it.
yeah.
Okay, let's start with Albert's table, because he's right in front, and whoever's the reporter.
Well, I have to say, I was a little selfish, because I knew that I'd be at a table with a very knowledgeable person, who I've gotten to know over the years. And if I ever had to be in an emergency of any kind, I would want to be in the group with Gene and Ursula Dresser. So I'm going to turn over to our de facto and in facto leader at our table, Gene Dresser.
Just a few things.
Okay, the first and most important is how you communicate. So one of the things that I have recommended and we all agreed to is that we would need to keep on hand old-fashioned radio transmission equipment, shortwave radios, so that we could both receive and transmit information depending on how far we are. And that would require batteries and hand crank generators. Okay, hand crank generators. These are things that you don't have to worry about. They won't die, and you don't have to go and think about gas stations. Another key problem that we talked about is sewage management. Right? This is where we were at the time when you said time to talk. And yeah, so that would mean probably baggies, because you don't want to introduce sewage into the water, because if it's a flood situation, you have problems with the sewer lines are going to be completely blocked up, your freshwater system may be compromised, and the need to manage sewage is critical so that you don't introduce a situation that can result in cholera or other problems of that nature. So that's as far as we go.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Like,
Thank you. Now, this table, who's going to speak out?
Few items.
All right, well, we're taking this from the perspective of, let's say, having a 7 or 8 story condo co-op rental type building. And we kind of had the same thing, battery operated radio, but a few other things we came up with were, first of all, preparedness beforehand, tell all your residents to stock up on water, canned food, etc., and a small generator where possible. Then maybe just have some food supplies and water on hand for the people in the building who don't have it already. Also, designate a common area that's safe from flooding, where, God forbid, there's a medical emergency or you need to do some staging, at least you have it. If you have people in the higher levels, yeah, I agree with you, there could be severe problems with the sanitary system, but if not, get water up to the higher floors, like jugs of water, etc., so that they can, flush the toilet manually, so to speak, until, pressure is restored. Well, yeah, I agree, but
You can't flush.
Right, but
There's no flight.
once, yeah, all right, fair enough point. And maybe just designate a person on staff, like a safety officer, just to handle emergencies within your complex as well.
Very good, thank you.
It's hard to go along because everybody steals all of your thunder, but who would like to speak here? Oh, that's it. There's always somebody that gets the job. Here you go.
I'll start here because Judy has an elevator experience. She works with D&D Elevator. She suggested that elevators not be kept in the pits. That is the worst place for them. The pits will tend to fill with water. So they should be brought up halfway up the shaft and locked off so nobody can have access to them. But this way you can avoid water. Extra pumps around the building. It's good to have a couple of things on your shelves. Tops, manual pumps that can be used. Even when you do have power though, you can, even if it's just a storm with heavy rain, you can have water that needs to be ejected out. Depending on the size of the building, you can have a chainsaw on the property. Sandbags, what it costs up front to have them when you need them. We also mentioned cots for the staff and things like that, food, water, and the rest of the stuff other people mentioned. I see you had a question.
This is for Lou.
I figured.
The county. You say Irvington School District, you have pre-existing written agreements to use the gym as a shelter?
No.
So where are your cots going to go?
That's one of the things that we've been discussing with a long time ago. When it comes to school districts, you have to deal with the district and also with the unions as far as people to work and maintain the school. Especially if it's during school. I mean, of course, if there's a hurricane, there'll be no school. But does this school also have a generator? If there's loss of power, that means that particular shelter will have no power either. And we would have to bring generators in. So we have to have service agreements with whether it be a school or another facility where we do a walkthrough to make sure it's compliant to the American Red Cross standards. Okay? We cannot just open up any old shelter, especially if it's a hurricane. So this is where we would have to work with the county and other agencies to make sure that wherever we go is safe enough where we do not have to evacuate that shelter because of an incident of whether it's a hygiene problem or electrical or loss of power. But in the village of Irvington, we do not have a shelter agreement with any of the schools.
Does the county have a pre-designated shelter somewhere?
So the county partners with the Red Cross to provide that service, and we would work with them to see, again, what's appropriate to the incident, what's appropriate to the hazard that's being addressed.
So let's get together too, because I want Ron Tocci also to speak before.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Stand.
Okay. We were addressing, the question of what are your needs, and we were looking at points of vulnerability. So, in addressing that question, so potentially, looking at rooftops being open to high winds. So, is that your location of HVAC equipment or basement? If you're having mechanicals, is that going to be susceptible to flooding? And do we have generators in placement to take over? So how secure are your windows? So designating people who will have, designating roles to your staff ahead of time, just like you have a snowstorm, you'll appoint someone who's going to do the shoveling, really setting specific roles to people to handle specific situations, and just making sure you also have things in place for the healthy remediation. So having masks for people, in situations where you're going to have, potential mold situations or dealing with, different functions, just reading through the pet pamphlet, where you're going to be dealing with sanitation and other issues, just being able to protect your staff with simple things like a mask, but just really knowing where your weak spots are ahead of time so you can handle it.
Okay, thank you. Very good.
Most everything's been covered already. Our group talked about when there is a loss of power, how are we going to deal with water, the flooding, the damage to the structure, personal injury, and along those lines, we would need medical and first aid kits. We need tools to repair mechanical systems in the structure we're in, to shut off mains, whatnot. Radio transmission, we thought maybe possibly solar backup to provide minimum lighting in the structure and for us to charge phones and communication devices. Also, there was mention of getting the main panels, the power panels, up above ground level so they don't short out. Get the generator up a story. If you do have one, have adequate fuel for it. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Got something? Something different? Something new?
We had a great table, very representative. Ken Finger, Chief Counsel to the BRI and the CCAC, and Counsel to many of our area's multifamily buildings. Robert Ferrara, Property Manager for our management group. Absolutely a great guy to have on a panel discussion of this type. Joe McCarthy, Board President of Soulgrave Cooperative in White Plains, Board Member of BRI's Condo Council. Jeff Foster, Sprig Energy, longtime member of the Building and Realty Institute. Yours truly, longtime employee of Trade Association BRI, 31 years of Trade Association experience, and an 8-year member of a co-op, an 8-year resident of a local co-op. Bottom line, communication is important. Everyone must communicate. In an emergency, don't rely so much on a cell phone. Have walkie-talkies. Batteries for walkie-talkies are more important and have longer lives than batteries for cell phone. Communication, designations are very important. That was it pretty much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on very quickly. We're actually going to just almost skip out on one situation. We're not going to do a lot about response because, whether you know it or not, and I don't know it's true in all communities in Westchester County, but in many communities, when wind goes over 35 miles an hour, when there's a hurricane coming, everything stops. No police, no fire, no ambulance, nothing. So, I'm not saying that this is true in Westchester County, but as the wind storm gets closer, response begins to hunker down because they don't want the agency vehicles and personnel out on the streets. They have to be reserved for aftermath, consequence management. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Time, again, is to plan and then execute, and then wait until the storm blows away. That's the key. So if you've done your planning properly and you've educated your residents and your employees are in place, so that everything you should have done prior to the storm, wait the storm out. If you're not evacuated, if you're out of the area, then there's not an issue. This is for people who may have to remain for whatever reason or can't get out for whatever reason. Now we're going to watch a second video, which is actual landfall.
Good evening, welcome back to BNN. Hurricane Hannah made landfall this morning as a Category 5 storm, making a direct hit on the metropolitan area. The city has been hit hard by sustained 160-mile-per-hour winds, and over 20 inches of rain have fallen in the past 24 hours. Hannah's storm surge was over 18 feet, and it broke through seawalls and flooded neighborhoods. The storm has moved northwest now, and search and rescue operations are underway. We've heard reports of victims trapped in collapsed buildings and others stranded by floodwaters. Utility companies, meanwhile, are reporting that over 1 million customers are without power, and utility crews are fighting to restore at least temporary power to critical facilities. The state is also working with federal officials and private companies on restoring communications, transportation, water, and other critical infrastructure. The governor reported from the Emergency Operations Center a few minutes ago that the state is struggling to clear roads and bypasses so residents can get to shelters in safe areas. The region's mass transit system is calling on private transportation companies for backup. Police departments throughout the region are working to maintain order and protect property. Meanwhile, with so many homes and buildings damaged, the governor is identifying additional temporary shelter and housing. The state is working with FEMA, the Red Cross, and other federal agencies to create temporary shelters. Since the evacuation was ordered 3 days ago, many residents have been staying in hotels and motels. The area's hospitals are also overwhelmed. They're taking in large numbers of survivors, but they're also trying to shore up their own facilities, which in many cases have been damaged and flooded. The hospitals say they need more critical medical supplies. They need help evacuating patients from damaged facilities. And as a grim sign of the scope of this disaster, they even need help with mortuary services and victim identification.
Okay. So we're going to basically gloss over this, just saying if you're prepared, then you'll be fine. Just be aware that you need to become informed about what the county, the state, and the federal response will look like, so your expectations are in line with reality. That's one of the big lessons that you need to take away. You need to know what's possible and what's not possible. Now, we're going to go into the final phase, watch another video, and then we'll have a final tabletop quick discussion, 1 or 2 items, and then we'll wrap it up.
I don't think we have time to actually be coming on 8 o'clock, so...
Okay, so
I'm finding this is beginning to depress me greatly, you know? I don't want to lose any more of the audience, but I want to have some...
Understood.
So will you watch the video? But I think...
And we'll wrap it up.
We'll wrap it up.
Good, no problem.
Otherwise I'm going to get really depressed.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody, so
Good evening and welcome to BNN. Since Hurricane Hannah made landfall last week, communities all across the region, from the coast to hundreds of miles inland, are struggling to recover. The slow-moving storm brought severe winds and rains and tornadoes, causing catastrophic flooding throughout the region. At least 4 states reported record rainfall, and most of the fatalities have been due to flooding. Survivors throughout the region still need emergency food and water, as well as ice to preserve food until power is fully restored. Utility companies are saying they need another week or more to restore power in some of the neighborhoods. Responders are also working hard to provide temporary roofing to homes and businesses that have damaged roofs, and to provide temporary housing to the thousands who have lost their homes. The states and FEMA have established locations where residents can get emergency supplies and water. There are many points of distribution in many communities where supermarkets and other food stores are still closed or damaged. The state is warning citizens that the public water supply has been breached by toxic chemicals and sewage from treatment plants. Residents should not use public water for drinking, washing hands, or even for bathing. But some neighborhoods are still flooded and unreachable, so residents are fending for themselves. Some have resorted to looting local businesses for groceries, electronics, and more. State and federal environmental cleanup teams are trying to contain the breach to the public water supply. Local emergency managers are taking a number of steps to inform and protect residents, including reverse 911 calls and even sending officers into the streets with bullhorns. Hurricane Hannah has devastated communities across our region. We have reported more than 1,000 fatalities and 5,000 critical or serious injuries.
Does that have Donald Trump approval?
Just going to skip through this, just to give you an idea of what the slide looks like. Again, you have all of this, and you should be using it. We'll skip the mitigation. This is for you to question yourselves when you're going home to your businesses and to your various other agencies. You should really take the time to designate a team to do this type of work and answer these questions. Very important part of the process. Important concepts. Education and training for employees and residents. Communications, as was mentioned. Start looking at satellite phones. The military is and the amateur radio associations are the only groups that have communications ability during a catastrophic event. Unless you're a ham operator, you should have staff that's ham-oriented and trained. Get them the equipment, be able to talk to whoever you need to talk with, especially through managing agents. If you're not going to do that, buy a satellite phone. They're surprisingly cheap. Technology has become very inexpensive compared to the one it was years ago. And you'll be able to communicate with anybody on the planet, literally. So really think about doing that. Power interruptions, generators, and alternate systems such as solar and other, wind even. Fuel preparations, you need to deal with the fact that you're not going to have any fuel. And coordination with volunteer organizations active in disaster and other government agencies. Some information, again, it's all in your packet. Where to go, what to do. Thank you. You're very attentive.
You know, if I'm ever in a tropical climate and one of these storms hits, I've noticed that the only thing standing after one of these horrible storms, you know, in a more tropical climate are the palm trees. So I think I'm going to lash myself to a palm tree and hope for the best, you know. But I want to thank Stuart and our panelists. I have Ron Tocci here tonight. And just a brief introduction, because what came out of the conversation that he and I had just a couple of days ago about tonight's program on his part, and some ideas that he's had, and a post-hurricane or post-storm situation where you read again, the biblical amounts of water that are dumped on a specific area, and then you see drought in the southwest, in Nevada, out west. You see the fires in California that are really almost unimaginable. Ron has got an idea which he wanted to share with me, and then we both agreed that he should be able to share with you. Ron Tocci, longtime representative of Westchester County in the state legislature and the county legislature, and having two sons in the U.S. Army, I'm proud to say, and I'm sure he's proud to say, also served in the 82nd Airborne, Army Airborne in the Vietnam War. So Ron Tocci, please share with us.
Thank you, Albert. I know it's late, we're listening to a lot of information, and we've been hearing on TV and watching the devastation and the response, and we all have ideas, and this is great. Learning, Stu, I thought made a great presentation. And in light of all of the information we have, and watching and learning what some of the people go through, even in this hurricane, which they've been talking about for the last 3 weeks, 40 people are dead already. And it's not always what we expect. I mean, a woman and her baby killed because a tree fell on the house. Simple things that you don't think about that you really should. I walk around my house all the time and I look at some of the oak trees. I've already pinned some, you know, to other trees that are in the other direction and so on. But anyway, before I start, maybe just take a respite. A funny experience on the way in. I got here early enough and I met a fella in the lobby and I just said hello and we started chatting. And I said, how'd you do today? And he says, what a miserable day I had. And I said, well, what happened? He said, well, I came in last night. He said, I missed my flight connection. I got here at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he says, I finally into bed, it's 1:30. In the meantime, I had to make a presentation at 7 o'clock. He said, so I'm half dead. I get into bed. And not even 5 minutes later, I hear someone knocking on my door. He said, I get out of bed, turn on the light, I open the door, and there's a drunk standing there. And he says, is this room 222? And I said, no, it's 121. You missed it by a floor. He said, leave me alone, I gotta get up. Goes back to bed. Not even 5 minutes later, knock on the door, opens the door, it's the same guy. Is this room 222? I told you, no, you're on the wrong floor. Leave me alone, I gotta get up early. Gets back in bed, 2 minutes later, sure enough, bang, bang, bang on the door. He said, I'm going to kill this guy now. He opens up the door, it's the same drunk. Before he gets a chance to say anything, this guy looks at him and he said, "Did you rent every damn room in this hotel?" It could happen. Anyway, I was talking to Al earlier, and I have a 3-hour presentation, which I'm going to make in 10 minutes or less. You know, listening to all the things that go wrong during the natural disasters. I've been working on a project since my college days, and I love engineering, technology, and all the modern things that we talk about. And I'm just going to say this. A country that we live in that could shoot a man in a missile, land him on the moon, and then have him take off and reel him back into the same spot he came from. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. And we did that in the 1960s. Here we are now, 2020 almost. How difficult could it be to harness water and move it from one place to the other? In the United States, as you heard Al preface his remarks when he introduced me, we have devastating forest fires in California that burn millions of acres, southwest Texas and so on. They can't fight the fire because they don't have any water. They have to bring in with helicopters and drop all kinds of suppression and water and so on. My whole thought is, why can't we connect the flood zones to the drought zones? It's an engineering problem. A series of pipes and pumps that go both ways, where you could take water from an area where they don't need it or where there's too much and move it someplace where they need it, could change the character of this country dramatically. It could also help us tremendously with the economy. We could make the deserts into oases. In Arizona and California and places in Texas and so on, the climate is perfect to grow crop. But they can't grow it because they don't have enough water. So if we were to move water into those areas, they would have a beautiful vegetation area. If they can grow enough crop 365 days a year, they'll want to put food processing plants up. They put a food processing plant up, it supplies jobs. People want the jobs. They move there. They start building houses. They fill up the houses. It feeds on itself, and you understand what I'm talking about. You would change the population density centers. People would move around wherever they think that they can have a good living. So I'm saying to myself, how do we do this? How do we do it? It's real simple. We have the Army Corps of Engineers, which is the lead agency in the United States that has maps and graphs, and we have all kinds of statistics about floods and droughts. We know what the sea levels are, we know the topography, the geography of the land, we know everything about it. What I'm suggesting is we connect all the flood zones to the drought zones with a series of pumps and all kinds of transferring water back and forth. And the right-of-ways would be the 50,000 miles of interstate highway that the United States owns and has the right-of-way, the easements on. So we don't have to condemn everybody like they did when they built the interstate highway system. We could build the pipes in the middle, on the outside, whatever. These would be pipes, I'm talking about 4 to 6 feet in diameter. There would be retention and detention and retention basins along the way. We would create water areas where there would be reservoirs and dams and so on. When the water is being pumped, we would drop turbines wherever the geography would allow. We would spin off electricity, which could be sold. We would segregate drinking water from agricultural water, and we could sell that, as they did when they built the dams in the West. So there's all kinds of economic benefits. Not to mention the millions of jobs. We anticipate maybe 3 to 10 million jobs that would be created that can never be exported out of the United States. They need jobs for maintenance, for security, for excavation, the construction jobs, everything that goes with it, the fabrication of the steel and so on and so forth. And what I'm suggesting is we would sync this system into the weather forecasting computers, so everything would be automatic. We know that in Florida, they're going to drop 15 inches of rain. The pumps go on 24 hours before, start pumping the water out of all of those areas, moving it across the country, so when the hurricane hits, it'll probably flood, but you mitigate tremendous damage. The Ohio-Mississippi River Basin, every spring, like clockwork, floods, it crests, and it destroys literally hundreds of thousands of acres of agricultural land. So now I'm overviewing this. You have pipes set up every eighth of a mile. You turn on the pumps. The water is pumped away from the river. It doesn't crest. You move it into southwest Texas, into California, and Arizona, and so on. And while you're doing that, where we know that there are wildfires prone for devastation, what we could do is we can run pipes right through the forest. So now if there's a forest fire, they have what we would see as fire hydrants in the forest. They could hook up, they could fight the fires. I think that in the last 3 years, $1.5 trillion has been spent that we know about, fixing the devastation of some of our fires and our hurricanes from the flooding. We have more than enough water in the world. 3/5 of the world is water. It's never in the right place. So there's no reason why we can't fix a lot of these things. So I have a presentation which is very, very detailed. I'm going to share with everybody. I'll give this to Al, and I'm going to pass it on. And basically what we're looking for is people to energize our federal government, because they would be the lead agency, and they would be the only ones that really could accomplish this. This would be the greatest public works project probably since the interstate highway system, barring our landing on the moon. But this would create, like I said before, millions of permanent jobs, which are desperately needed. It would give everybody a stake in America to work on this, and the economic loss and the social impact could be certainly helped tremendously. And I'm just thinking that all we need is the political will of our government to do something like this. And I don't want to hear that they can't do it. There's no such thing as we can't do it. We're not going to beat Mother Nature, but at the same time, we could mitigate a lot of the problems. Relevant to a lot of the Realty people, think about the Passaic River Basin in Jersey. Great land in a populous area, useless. Nobody's going to build on it because they worry about the floods and so on. You mitigate that. That land becomes very valuable now. Now they develop it. It's worth money to everybody. So I can go on and on about all of the different benefits, and you heard all about the devastation that's caused by these tremendous events. But I really think that it's high time that Congress stop all of this partisan nonsense and we start doing something that might be worthwhile for everybody. So I'm going to ask everyone in due time, when this is finally completed, to help me lobby all of our elected representatives on the federal level and see if we can get the right people in leadership roles. During the Depression days and even before, great leadership accomplished the building of all those massive dams that are still running, that are making money. The Power Authority of the state of New York on the Niagara was the first of its type of project in the country, and that's making money and providing energy all over. There's no reason why we can't do something like this. This would certainly be something that would make America work again, literally and figuratively. So I bring that to you tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity that Al and everybody gave me to present it, and I look forward to coming back, maybe and speaking again and answering some questions. So God bless all of you. Thank you.
So on that note, I do want to thank our panel, Stuart and Ron Tocci, for, I think, a very interesting evening. Thank you all for sticking around and being part of the discussion. And we heard a lot of good ideas here at the tables. I have to admit, I like the idea of the satellite phone and the walkie-talkies and all the other ideas that I heard. So we're in the heart of the season now. And I think it's supposed to go through the end of November, but with the changing climate, one never knows. So hopefully you'll be all prepared as best you can, and have a good night. safe home, and we'll pick it up again in October. And as soon as Ron gives me some information on that, we'll let you all know, and anybody who wants a copy, contact us. Thanks very much, everybody. On behalf of my staff, Jeff, Maggie, Margie, and myself, Vinnie Mutarelli, our president, who I have to leave, have a good night, safe home.